Rachel Reeves has claimed her November budget will be fair, but it seems she wants ordinary workers to pay while the super rich walk free. You see, there's a big difference between procedural fairness, everyone pays a bit, rules applied consistently, and redistributive fairness, that's asking those with the most to pay proportionally more. According to The Guardian, Reeves has refused to rule out tax rises in this month's budget, insisting she must deal with the world as I find it, not the world as I might wish it to be. The Chancellor foreshadowed an income tax increase, a breach of Labour's manifesto commitment, as a result of the public finances being in a worse state than expected after years of economic mismanagement. Coverage by both The Guardian and the BBC suggest that an income tax rise is a real possibility. The Guardian notes that Reeves foreshadowed an income tax increase, and the BBC frames it as potentially breaking a 50-year tax taboo by raising the basic rate. This would be significant, as it would breach Labour's manifesto promise not to increase income tax, VAT, or national insurance. Reeves has explicitly refused to rule out increases in VAT and national insurance, but the focus in both outlets is much more on income tax. Any rise in VAT or NI would likely be politically sensitive, but could be used if she wants to avoid targeting wealthier households directly. Neither The Guardian nor the BBC suggests Reeves is interested in a wealth tax or capital gains tax changes, although that might be politically safer than raising income tax across the board. She could, in theory, equalise capital gains tax with income tax or introduce a new levy on very high net worth individuals. But there's no reporting yet that she is leaning that way. She has mentioned welfare reform and investment prioritisation as ways to manage the public finances. So it is possible that the government will mix spending cuts or reforms with selective tax increases rather than rely entirely on one measure. So, taxes almost certainly will rise, but the specifics, income tax, CGT, VAT, or something else, remain deliberately unspecified. Reeves is framing it as doing the right thing for public finances rather than adhering strictly to manifesto pledges, and she's using this pre-budget speech to soften up public expectations. Income tax rises, especially at the higher end, seem the most likely. But how can such changes be fair when they are likely to hit low earners much harder than the super rich who can easily absorb them? When she says the budget will be fair, she is clearly framing fairness in terms of shared responsibility for the public finances, rather than targeting wealth inequality specifically. But that is problematic. Possible rises in income tax, VAT, or national insurance mostly hit earned income, paychecks, salaries, pensions. Meanwhile, huge swathes of the very rich live off dividends, capital gains, property income, and other unearned sources, which are taxed far less heavily. For example, capital gains are still often taxed at lower rates than salary, and inheritance or wealth accumulation sees very little annual taxation. So, Reeves's fairness seems to mean everyone contributes something according to the rules we can actually enforce quickly, leaving the ultra-rich largely untouched, while asking workers, middle earners, and public service users to shoulder most of the fiscal adjustment is clearly inequitable. A genuinely fair approach would consider wealth taxes, higher rates on dividends and capital gains, or equalizing CGT with income tax. Without touching unearned wealth, which has skyrocketed in the last couple of decades, let's not forget, the burden disproportionately lands on ordinary earners, renters, small business owners, and workers who have seen their own income fall in real terms over the same period. So it seems the rich, who enjoy enormous unearned income, can largely opt out of paying under the current plan. Reeves's claim to be fair in these terms is ridiculous. If this is the fig leaf with which she hopes to cover an economic obscenity, she needs to get back in her office and think again.